I want to mention that me giving God these 7 days, it wasn't just because, yes, it was because I wanted to see what he can do, but it was also because I was at such a low point where I tried other things and nothing else was working. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna give him the go and I'm gonna try with him. I tried a therapist that I was going to for months. I would go weekly. I gave her an hour each week, and I was trying to see if that would help me. I would do a compliment jar, and I had a thankful jar. So I would try to give myself compliments and write things that I'm thankful for every day and see if that will help me. I started buying like a bunch of quotes that I could put on my wall, so that way I can have positive quotes that I can read every single day and try to keep myself having a positive mindset. I went through a point where I just deleted and unfollowed a lot of people off of Instagram because I got to the point where I just wanted my Instagram to just be filled with positive quotes. I didn't care to watch, see pictures of other people having a great grand old life. I just wanted to see a bunch of positive verses or positive quotes to help me through the day. So me doing that, all I would do is go through Instagram and I would just scroll through a bunch of quotes and I would just read all these quotes and try to have a positive mindset. But every time I faced something negative or something that annoyed me, something that pissed me off, every time I went through it, I couldn't even think of that quote. I couldn't even get that positive mindset. I would always be so negative. I was always complaining, always upset, always just disgusted with life, with no motivation, nothing that gave me a drive to want to do better for myself. So I definitely feel at that point it was kind of he was my last resort. It was the last thing that I can possibly try to see if that'll work, because I tried all these other things that have not helped me, have not made me any better. You would think going to a therapist, bro, I was spending money going to a therapist and it did not help me, it did not benefit me whatsoever. It was just a person to talk to, but once I left, I didn't learn anything that helped me grow or helped me want to do anything better for myself. So that's also something that pushed me to spend so much time with him and try him for 7 days, because I tried all these other things and nothing worked. So I kind of was like, why not? Hello, my name is Skylah Batista, and today I'm going to share my testimony of how Jesus saved me, how God got my attention, and how I have been trying to live by the Bible ever since. I need to start this off with prayer, because you don't want to know how many tries I've had trying to do this, and I constantly feel like I either forget something or I find something else that happened during that time and I want it to be included. So, Lord, I pray that you move in our hearts today. I pray that this message gets out the way that you want it to be received and the way that you want it to be spoken. I pray that you and the Holy Spirit are in full control, and that I'm not speaking through my flesh, but I'm speaking through your spirit, Lord, that you put inside of me, Lord. I thank you, Jesus, for this opportunity and for giving me a voice. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. On the 10th, so 2 days ago, I saw this TikTok of this girl talking about Jonah, about how he basically is a prophet, and when God told him to go speak, go to this specific area and speak about God to them to help save them and save that land, how Jonah just heard it and he ran the opposite direction. So when I saw that, I'm like, dang, God, you got me. Because I feel like I know that he's been putting emphasis on me doing this, and to say the least, I have not done it. At the time, before I got saved, I wanted to make YouTube videos because I love talking, I love socializing, I love interacting with people, but I never did it. And then now that I am Christian, I felt like I wanted to do it even more, to share his word and help other people. I know God wants me to share my testimony. I know he keeps telling me. And today, I was already planning on doing this video, but today I feel like it was even more of an emphasis that he was making when I was reading. So first, we'll start off. I was reading 2 Timothy chapter 4, if you want to read along with me. But I'll read 2 verses that I read. The first verse I read is verses 2 and 5. Proclaim the message, persist in it, whether convenient or not. Rebuke, correct, and encourage with great patience and teaching. Verse 5 says, I'm going to start at verse 4. They will turn away from hearing the truth and will turn aside to myths. But as for you, be serious about everything. Endure hardship. Do the work of an evangelist. Fulfill your ministry. When I read that, I started crying because I'm like, God, like, I get it, okay? I know you want me to share. I know you want me to proclaim your word. You want me to share the message, share what you've done in my life, not keep that to myself. And, you know, I'm holding on to it as if that's how it's going to be beneficial. Like, yeah, it changed my life and it was beneficial for me, but I need to help other people and help other people at least get exposed to him. So then I was reading Mark. I was reading chapter 5. I'm starting at verse 20. Basically, it's talking about how a guy was demon possessed. So when he gets these demons out of this person who other people have seen him for years, and they've witnessed how crazy he was when he had all these demons in him. And when they see him after Jesus removes the demons, they say that he's in right mind. He's actually dressed and clothed, like a completely different person than they saw before. And when Jesus, the guy was so amazed, because he finally was like, cleansed. He was finally delivered from all these demons. So he was so amazed that he was like, Jesus, I want to stay with you. Like, I want to follow you, and I want to go where you're going with your disciples. I want to go with you. And Jesus is like, bro, no. He's like, you need to go home. And this is what he says. We're going to start at 19. However, Jesus did not permit him, but said to him, go home to your friends and tell them what great things the Lord has done for you and how he has had compassion on you. And he departed and he, as in the guy who was demon possessed, departed and began to proclaim in Decapolis, don't know if that's right, all that Jesus had done for him, and all marveled. And then when I read this, I started crying because I'm like, God, I get it. He wants me to proclaim what he has done for me. He wants me to tell other people what he has, how he has moved in my life and how he has changed me. So because this weight has been on me for a really long time, in December, like literally, 6 months ago, I wrote out like a bullet point list of a bunch of things that happened to kind of get me clear mind, and make sure I have everything. I don't forget certain things. So when I was rereading it today, I actually have not touched that since I wrote it. Like, I have not even looked at it. And I tried to make this video 2 times. So it's crazy that today, when I finally actually have it by my side, I'm reading through it. And at the end of it, I wrote Jonah chapter 2. When I start seeing that, I'm like, there's no way. Like, that's literally what I'm doing. I'm like, God, there's no way you have me write that in December. What was I doing at that time that I decided to write Jonah chapter 2? And why? I'm like, dang, God. I'm like, you literally planned everything to a T. Like, you set everything up. Why is it that when I see the TikTok, it's about Jonah? That's the TikTok that made me say, I got to be serious. I got to do this. He's been telling me and I have to stop ignoring him. And now that's what I wrote in chat. I'm like, I can't. I'm like, God is so good. Like, he's too much. I was so shocked. I was really so shocked. So in Jonah, it talks about how he flees, how he runs away, how he doesn't, God tells him what to do. He runs away to the opposite direction. He goes into a boat to get to that opposite direction, and God ends up putting a storm in the ocean, because he's like, bro, that's not what I told you to do. So the people on the boat during this time, the people on the boat are scared. They are wide awake. They're like, what is going on here? Like, this is crazy tormenting winds in the ocean. And Jonah is at the bottom of the ship sleeping. It says that he had fallen into a deep sleep. I'm like, dang, that's kind of how I felt like I've been in a deep sleep. Like, putting this to rest for 6 months. Bro, you knew you had to do this before December. Like, you just postponed it, and then now it's 6 months later. Like, dang, that's a long sleep. Basically, him running away, it was him running from God's presence. And I'm like, dang, God, like, I don't want to run from your presence. I want to run to your presence. So the way you do that is, by doing what he told you to do, by obeying him and worshiping him in that process. So Jonah chapter 2, he basically is doing a prayer to God, because, now he's like, all right, God, like, I'm here. I'm listening to you. So in the end of the prayer, he says, I will fulfill what I have vowed. Salvation is from the Lord. So Lord, today I will fulfill what I have vowed to do. So yes, that is how I decided to start doing this. So I was raised Christian. Up until I can remember, my mom has been Christian. She has always taken us to church. My grandfather is a pastor, so we would always go to his church. With that being said, I never knew why we were going there. I never understood what Jesus did for me, or, what experience. Like, I didn't know the point of going. I would just go because I felt like I had to, but I never understood what it meant to be Christian. And, even though everybody in, like, all my friends in, middle school, high school, they all knew I went to church, so I was always the church girl. And if people asked me, I would say, yeah, I'm Christian. But in the end, I was living the same life as them. I was just as worldly. So yeah, so we're gonna start November 2019. I went to work. I had this job for, I want to say, I was going on 2 years. I was about to make 2 years in January. So November 2019, I went to work thinking it was a regular day, regular shifts, ready to get some money. And when I went there, I got very annoyed. I got annoyed. I got very upset. So instead of me going to work that day, I said, you know what? I told the lady, Lord, forgive me. That's embarrassing. I told the lady, I'm not going to go to the shift today. You can take this as my notice. I'm not working today. I'm not coming back. This is my last day. I'm not even getting on the phone today. I quit. That's what I told her. So I was so annoyed. I used to be so angry before God. I used to be so angry. I wanted you to piss me off. I was hoping that you would press that wrong button so I could get annoyed with you. Like that was how I was. I was like a ticking time bomb. To the point where, like, my family members, they knew how I was, and they would avoid certain conversations with me just because they didn't want to deal with me. They didn't even want to know how I was going to react, so they would avoid certain conversations. So here, I did that. I left. I was annoyed, and I said, you know what? I'm just going to go to visit my mom. My parents got a divorce in 2018, so my mom was living in Florida. I was like, I'll just go to Florida. Me and my mom have not had a good relationship for a couple of years at this point. So since she left in 2018, I barely ever spoke to her. When she lived with us in New York, we used to live in the same house, and we would go months at a time without talking. We would just avoid each other's existence because we knew if we would talk to each other, we would always end up arguing. And a lot of the times, if not all the times, it was definitely my fault, and I was very, very disrespectful. So I don't blame her. We're good now, but I definitely don't blame her for that time period. So I said, you know what? I haven't seen her. I might as well go to Florida. My younger brother was already there living with her. So I'm like, yeah, I can visit him too. Me and him always had like a really, really close relationship. So I, of course, missed him a lot. Having him not at home was also affecting me. Very emotional. He was like my rock type of thing. So I wanted to see both of them. When I come in November, I literally booked, I went home from, after quitting, I went home, I booked a flight to Florida for the next day. And I was like, I'm going to Florida. So I went for like 5 days, I think, or something. So I went to Florida. I visit my mom. I hang out with her. We actually had a good conversation where we were able to, we spent a lot of time together, and we haven't done that in a really long time. So it was very, very nice. I know when I went, I felt so at peace. It was a different peace. Like, so I've never felt that type of peace in our house before. So to go to her new house, and I just felt so much love. It was because of Jesus. It was because of his godly presence. When I left, I know the reason why I started to somewhat seek him was because of how I felt. Throughout high school, throughout middle school, I felt unloved, depressed, anxious, worried all the time, nervous, unwanted, neglected, anything you could think of. Like, I just constantly felt alone. So different. So that happens. Now we're going to December 2019. I basically start having dreams. So during this time, I'm definitely not praying. Well, not really. I'm not really praying. I'm not really reading the Bible. Definitely not listening to Christian music. But I'll talk to him here and there. So I kind of prayed, but not really. So basically, I'm talking to him. I'll say random comments, God, help me with anger, help me with this, help me with that. But I'm not really trying to create that relationship with him and create that bond or that trust with him. Like, yeah, Christianity is a religion, but at the end of the day, it is not a productive, it's not a productive lifestyle if you don't have a relationship with God. So, my whole life I was Christian. I had the religion part. I had that down packed because I was raised in that Christian church. So I knew the system and the order or whatever. But at the end of the day, I didn't know God. I didn't know Jesus. I didn't have that relationship with him, that personal connection with him, that intimate time with him spent, that I was learning about him, learning about his word. For spending like 20 years of my life in church, or we'll say 15 because, I stopped at a certain point. Like spending over a decade in church, I didn't know not one Bible story. I didn't really learn anything. I thought I knew the Jonah story. I thought I knew the Noah story. No, I didn't know none of that. Like, I learned so much more now that I'm actually in that personal relationship with him. So in December 2019, I started getting dreams. Keep in mind, I'm still in this relationship. We're about to hit 3 years. This dream, I got 2 dreams. This dream was December 18, 2019 at 9:30 a.m. So this dream I wrote last night. I had a nightmare of me cheating on my boyfriend. This caused us to break up. At this time in my life, I was I was not willing to let go of him. We broke up multiple times before we actually broke up, and I always wanted him to come back. I always was willing to take him back. Like, I never wanted this relationship to end. So when I had this dream, I didn't want it to be literal. I'm thinking this is definitely not literal. I will not break up with him. I am not allowing that to happen. I need him. And when I had this dream, I was trying to think of other reasons why I would have this dream. So I was trying to Google different reasons why you would have a dream like this, so that way it couldn't be so literal. A lot of the times when God gives you dreams, yes, there's a deeper meaning, but for me, this one was literal, and I didn't want to accept that. So that same day, I was going to Brooklyn to visit my cousin, Crystal, and we were going to walk the Brooklyn Bridge. So before I went to her, I wrote this down. I said, I was praying to God to give me a sign that I am in the right direction. I was asking him to help me not be so angry with little things, and I have doubts since I quit my job. I want to know I'm doing something efficient. At this point, I'm a month with no job. And now I am in school, but I feel like I was being somewhat lazy or, so you can see here that I was seeking God. I wasn't doing the most, but I definitely was looking to him for help or guidance or whatever. So I go to Brooklyn, I visit my cousin, we go to the Brooklyn Bridge, I drop her off, and I'm driving home. I'm on the Kosciuszko Bridge, and I'm just driving, and I don't know if I was talking to him or what. And then as I'm driving, I look, and then I'm driving, and I'm like, what the? and there's a billboard, huge billboard. I'm like, I've never seen that billboard. Bro, I used to live in Brooklyn for a good portion and then Long Island, but I travel back and forth to the boroughs all the time. I've never seen that billboard before. I've never seen that billboard. Huge billboard, and it says, Jesus has a new life for you, with like butterflies on it. And I look at it and I'm like, at first I brushed it off, and then I look back at it and I'm like, no, I'm like, God, that was a sign. You're telling me I'm in the right direction. You're telling me that you have a new life for me. You're telling me that there's something more coming for me than just what I have now. Because I was at this point where I'm so sad. Like, even though I'm seeking him, I'm sad. I'm crying every day. Like, me and my boyfriend, we were in a long distance relationship, so that alone was hard. And then on top of that, I felt like I didn't have anybody. You know, I am in college. All my friends are away at school. I'm doing stuff at home, you know, like doing school from home. Not from home. I'm going, like, I'm a commuter to campus versus living on campus. So I feel alone all the time. I feel like I don't have any support. My brother, my younger brother, who was like my closest support system, lives in Florida right now. I just felt alone all the time. So I'm like, dang, like that gave me so much hope. I'm like, all right, God, like you're here, like you're talking to me, that you're trying to get my attention. You're telling me that there's more coming. So then that night I go to sleep. Now this is December 19, 2019, again at 9:35 in the morning. So this is the same time back to back. I said, last night I had another nightmare. I keep calling them nightmares. I had another nightmare of my boyfriend and I breaking up. This time it was him initiating the separation. He was saying I was too much to deal with and he wants his space from me. Like, just a spoiler alert, that's exactly what happened. And during this time I just was ignoring it. So I just act like that dream didn't happen. I'm trying to connect it to something else, and then I just eventually forget that it even occurred. Now we're fast forwarding to January 2020. I basically went 2 months without working, and throughout December I'm like, God, let it be your will that I get a job by January. That was January 14th. I start working at Applebee's. I was a waitress. I honestly loved waitressing. January 14th was my very, very first day working there, and I did a morning shift. I remember it was like the best first shift of a job I've ever had. I don't know why. I honestly cannot remember, but the people there were so funny, and it was just it was like a nice environment. Very, very fun. So I had plans with my boyfriend because at this point he graduated college. So he was living home finally full time. We had planned for me to, after my first shift, for me to go to his house. We were gonna get drunk and we were going to, I was gonna sleep over. So I get there, we start drinking, we're hanging out, we're talking. Somehow, the conversation starts to escalate. You know, it really, that whole night, it really showed me like what alcohol does and the negative effects. I just, not a good time, a very, very, very bad time. We end up breaking up that night, and I'm more depressed. I'm actually surprised, but I haven't mentioned it yet. During this time, I'll say by junior year of high school, I started to smoke. And not smoke a lot, but that's when I started to smoke. And by this time in January 2020, I was a very, very big smoker. I had a lot of stuff for weed. So with this relationship breaking off, I pushed more to weed to help me. I think even though I was seeking God in November, because I wouldn't let go of my trust in weed and my confidence in weed, I know that limited me with getting to know him and learning more about him and really seeing where it can go with just me and him. I definitely trusted weed way more than I ever trusted in him. So at this point, I'm depressed. I'm even more anxious. I'm even more sad. I feel betrayed because he broke up with me. So I'm like no good can come from this. Like, if he doesn't want me, nobody's gonna want me. Like, literally so traumatic. So with that, it was hard. I was crying every single day. So what I chose to do is I decided to work 24/7. And when I wasn't working, I was smoking. And when I wasn't smoking, I was working on doing stuff for school because I had classes still. So a very, very hard time. I want to say I went to school 2 times a week. So me going to school 2 times a week, I was working 4 to 5 days a week. With me doing those 4 or 5 days, I was doing minimum 10-hour shifts. Minimum. I was doing between 10 and 15-hour shifts, plus going to school, plus smoking any other chance that I got. So I was just not okay. I have always been, before, I was, a big portion of my life, I was codependent on weed, codependent on people. I feel like I really, really liked when people would give me attention. And that's why I felt like this relationship breaking off was so hard for me, because that was ensuring me having some type of attention, having some type of security, or feeling that type of love that other people or other things wouldn't give me. So it was hard. We break up. I just start working 24/7. I start smoking 24/7. So now we're in February 2020. I remember having a table. Keep in mind, while I'm working here, I was saying that I'm not going into a relationship. Like, I don't want to talk to nobody. I don't want nobody to look at me. I don't want to do nothing with no boys. Like, I'm over them. I'm over the games. That's what I was saying. But by February 2020, I'm actually entertaining. I'm entertaining guys while I'm at work, and I'm not trying to get into a relationship, but I definitely am flirting, and I'm okay with people giving me the attention. I'm okay with people giving me their flirting, their little lines to see where they're gonna go. Like, I'm definitely entertaining it. So during February 2020, I end up getting a table. It was a table of like a party of 8. So even though I'm super sad, super depressed, crying any chance I get, I'm working as if I'm the best person alive, as if I have something to be joyful about. So I remember working with this table. I was super happy and like making jokes, having a great old time. I'm also still new, so having this big party of a table was kind of hard, because I'm doing this table plus like maybe 5 or 6 other tables. With them, they had so many things. I was super busy. I didn't realize one of their meals never came. I didn't even know. Then the desserts was all melted and came, like, it was a mess. I had so many mistakes with this one table, but I also was still being very, very, uplifted, upbeat. And one of the guys, his name was Ben, he was like, oh, I love the way that you are, how you are. I love the way that you speak, that you talk. We really enjoy the work that you've done. Even though, he didn't say this part, but that's me. Even though I made so many mistakes, he was still complimenting me and complimenting the job that I did. He's like, you would be great for our church. I'm like, skirt, you better reverse. No way he just said that to me. No way. So he says that, and I'm like, no, I'm sorry. You will not catch me at a church. I'm seeking God, but I'm not at that point where I'm all in, deep in, swimming for him. Like, no. So he's talking to, he's really pushing it. He's like, yeah, you'll be great for our church. Like, you should come. We just came, because this was a Sunday night. Oh, we just came from church, and it was a great service, great singing, great this, great that. And I'm like, oh, sorry, I really can't. I don't go to church. And you know what? I work Sundays. I work doubles on Sundays. So I'm busy all day. He's like, oh, well, we have weekday services, Wednesday, Thursday, this and that. And like giving me different times. I'm like, bro, no. I'm pushing him off. I keep like brushing it off. I'm like, bro, no. Like, you're not going to catch me there. So he kept pushing it. And I'm like, all right, God. Because, I'm somewhat listening to him. So I'm like, all right, God. You know what? I'm going to ask him, what church is it? Because, it's going to be, I'm just going to say, that's not the church I go to. I don't go to that church. Sorry. So as he's pushing it, I'm like, oh, what type of church is it? He goes, it's a Pentecostal Christian church. I'm like, okay, God. I start laughing. I have to be professional, so I'm trying to not be rude to him. But when he said that, I'm like laughing, because I'm like, God, you are funny. I was raised in a Pentecostal Christian church. So I'm laughing because I'm like, bro, you're wow. So I'm like, okay, write that stuff down. write the church down, whatever, and I'll see if I go. He goes, you'll see. I'm like, I'll see, no promises, because I didn't want to be, I had a feeling I wasn't gonna go. So I'm like, we'll see. So keep in mind, I'm a waitress. I have pens, I have papers. I don't give him none of that. I just tell him that, and then I walk away because I have other tables. So I'm hoping that the bus, because they already paid. So I'm hoping that the bus boy or whoever is gonna clean off the table, throw out all this random garbage, and then I could come back and I'll miss, I won't get that. Like, it'll get lost in the mail, basically. So I'm running around. I'm keeping myself busy. I'm genuinely trying to not run into them again. I'm trying to help other people. Oh, you need help with your table? I got you. Like, literally trying to not have to see them. And they end up catching me when I have some downtime. They waited, bro. They waited. They sat there and waited until I had some free time. So he can say, here, I don't want it to get lost, and puts it in my hand. I'm like, bro, God, you are funny. You are so funny. So I just put in my apron. I'm like, fine. I keep it. This is February 2020. Now we're fast forwarding to March 2020. By this point, I am entertaining a guy, one specific one. I end up going with him and his family to Connecticut. We're not dating, but I do go. And this is the weekend. So I wrote it down because I need the dates. So we go, I want to say it was 13, 14, 15 of March 2020. And COVID, everything that starts going crazy with COVID is, I want to say the 15th. The day that we came back was the day that, like, everybody was like going crazy. Everybody's trying to stock up. Everybody's at the stores clearing out the shelves, trying to get extra stuff for their house, because we're hearing that there might be a shutdown of the area and stuff, and like we have to quarantine or something. So when we go on the 13th, we go to Connecticut. I want to say the 14th, we went to the mall, and me and him both went to this like jewelry place, and we got chains. So he bought a Jesus piece with a chain, and I just bought a chain. And I remember when that happened, I'm like, God, like, he bought a Jesus piece, like he loves you, bro, like he is of you. It's crazy because the Bible says Satan and his demons, they will come to you as an angel of light. They will come to you as if they're from God, even though they're not of God. They're a wolf in sheep's clothing. They literally want to blend in as if they're not from the opposite team. So this kind of like made me feel like, oh, maybe this is a good thing, because we end up start dating that day. Now 15th happens, we come home. This is when COVID is going crazy. So the March 17th was my last day at Applebee's, and everything shut down. School shut down, churches shut down, my job shut down. I was forced at home. I know during this time, it was like when it was God trying to get my attention. He was like, bro, like, wake up. Now you have the free time. Even my school, because they shut down, they gave us a couple of weeks of nothing. So, like, it was like God was just like, bro, wake up. Like, you better use this time wisely. So throughout this time, I start reading the Bible at random, very, very inconsistently. I am still smoking 24/7, especially now because I have so much free time. I'm smoking all the time. I would wake up at like 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning. I'm already smoking. And while I'm smoking, I'm rolling up for my next time smoking. I was just smoking all day, every day. That's all I would do at this point. So by April, I was feeling, I was definitely feeling him changing me, because I was being more in his word and, talking to him. But I knew I was limiting myself. So also, just a side note, my mom, she has always sent us Christian videos. Always. All the time. Like multiple times a day at times. So with that, up until this point, I didn't care. She would send them, and I would open the message, not even read it, and just get back out, just so I didn't have that notification. But because I started spending more time with God, I started to slowly feel like conviction, started feeling like, bro, you shouldn't be doing that. So when she would send me videos, I started to feel bad. Me and my two brothers, none of us would answer. So now I got to the point where I was somewhat spending time with God, and I felt bad. I felt like, dang, bro, that's so sad. Like, she stays sending us videos and none of us answer. None of us be watching it. None of us comments on it. None of us reads what her messages be saying. So I started to answer. Even though I wasn't necessarily watching all of them, I would at least respond by saying, oh, cool, thank you for sending that or this and that. Like, I just felt bad, which is how God kind of reeled me in. So slowly I did start watching the videos. I start feeling convicted because how do I think it's okay to be smoking while I'm watching a video about God and Christianity? And like, bro, that's so disrespectful. So before that, I didn't think twice about it. I didn't even care. I'm like, I'm good. But at this point, I started seeing God move and change me. And I'm like, nah, that's messed up. So I said, okay, I'm not going to smoke while watching the videos. But I would still smoke, outside of it. So when I'm not watching those videos, I'm smoking. But when I'm watching the videos, I'm sober. Like, so I said, okay, you know what? I want to see what God can do. I want to see how he's going to move. I feel like I want more. I feel like I'm limiting myself. I feel like I want to see if he has changed me this little bit, even through me still smoking and me doing a bunch of worldly things. I can only imagine what he can do with me if I give it all to him. So let me see. I feel like I definitely was still somewhat skeptic, where I didn't know for sure if I wanted to, if I even really believed in him. It was hard for me to trust in someone that I couldn't see and give him my life and live my life for him. So I had trouble with that. And I felt like the only way that I can really see if he is it, if he is real, if he can do the most, if he is Yahweh, King of Kings, Lord of Lords, if Jesus is the one, I need to try my best and do the most. I need to not smoke, not listen to any secular music, not watch any secular movies, actually pray, actually spend time with him, actually talk to him, actually read the Bible consistently every single day. I want to try it. Let me see what happens. So I said, I'll give you 7 days. That's what I told him. I'll give you 7 days. On April, I don't even know why I chose this date, but on April 13, 2020, I will start 7 days, no smoking, no drinking. I'll start this. 7 days. That's all I'm giving you. You do what you will. You show me if you're real. If you're not real, then great. I don't mind stopping for 7 days of smoking, because you know what? I used to do that all the time. Whenever my tolerance would get too high and I would need so much weed to get high, I said, all right, I'll take a week or 2 weeks off and then I'll go back to smoking, and my tolerance will be lowered where I'm able to not have to smoke as much. Keep in mind, at this point, I was smoking an O a week. If anybody who smokes weed knows, that's a lot of weed. I really thought I was going to go back to smoking. So I didn't mind. I knew it would always be there for me. So I said, all right, well, I have weed right now, and I just picked up. I want to say I started, maybe 5 days before April 13, I decided this, and I just picked up. So I'm like, nah, I'm going to smoke everything I have, because I'm not throwing that out, and I'm not going to let it get old, and then it's not going to be good bud anymore. So I'm going to smoke it all. So what day was it? I wrote it down. Hold on. That Friday, it was April 10th. Me, my brothers, their girlfriends, we went to my cousin's house, and we were just going to hang out for the weekend. I didn't want to stay there the whole weekend because I wanted to go visit my boyfriend. So I said, I will go for 1 day, and then, they were going to stay for 2 nights. I said, I'll stay for 1 night and hang out with you guys for those 2 days. So we go on that Friday, the 10th. We just got there, and I'm putting my stuff, I drove separately because I was going to leave early. So I put my stuff in the room, and I'm taking off my sweatshirt because it's winter time, and my sweatshirt was like somewhat a turtleneck. So I remember taking it off, and as I'm like this, it's getting stuck, and I'm just like, like literally me, because I had to be so aggressive, so extra. I can't just be patient and check why it got stuck. I'm just being annoying. So I'm just like pushing it off, and then I hear something pop, and I'm like, what the heck was that? So so I had those 2 chains on, and when that popped, the one that popped was the one that I got with my boyfriend from Connecticut. I start laughing. Thank you, God. Thank you, Jesus. I start laughing because I'm like, God, you are funny. That's what I tell him all the time. I'm like, you are hilarious, bro. You are hilarious. I'm laughing because I'm like, as soon as that I saw which chain broke, first of all, my dad, this one says my name. My dad got me this chain. You know, now, just so you know, both of them, my dad got me. But in the time, this one my dad got me, and the other one I got with my boyfriend. And not that I felt like that chain was for him, but I definitely feel like, you know, I would remember or think about him when I would look at the chain, because I got it with him. So when it broke, I thought of him, and I thought me and him break up. So I'm laughing because I'm like, God, don't tell me we're gonna break up. I'm laughing as I'm saying that because I think it's probably the most preposterous thing. I think it's so random, so never gonna happen, no possibility. So I'm laughing it off because I'm like, yeah, that's so funny, because that's not happening. It's not happening. And as I'm laughing, I'm thinking, like, now I'm like, and I think at that time, I thought that because I'm like, why did that one break, the one that I got with him, compared to the one that my dad got me? Because I'm like, low key, I'm like, was there a reason for that? And, you know, it has to be a sign. But I'm like, no, we're in a good relationship. We're good. We haven't even argued. Like, we good. We are good all the time. Like, why would I need to do that? Why? So I laughed it off. Whatever. I smoke that whole night. I end up knocking out way early compared to everybody else because they were drinking. I was smoking. Every time I smoke, I knock out. So I knock out. I wake up early. Everybody's sleeping until midday. So I wake up early and I'm watching Marcus Rogers videos while I'm smoking in the kitchen. That's what I did. I don't remember if I saw my boyfriend that night, but I know that next day, which was the 12th, keep in mind, this is Easter. I told him, we're gonna smoke all of my stuff. I wanna take a little break, a tolerance break. I don't think I told anybody that I was doing this. I'm pretty sure it was just between me and God. And I know for sure I didn't tell him. Another reason why I chose to do this for the 7 days is because of the way that I would see Marcus Rogers preach in his videos. The way that he would be so confident about God, about Jesus. The way that he didn't care what anybody would say. People in the comments are so ruthless. People in the comments are mean. And he didn't care. He was so confident, so pushed, doing YouTube for I don't know how many years, 5, 7 years, maybe more. Definitely in the ministry for more. And he didn't care because he's so confident. He knows that God is real. He knows that Jesus is real. He knows that Jesus is still alive. Jesus resurrected. He was so confident. And I was like, God, I want to feel that way. And what's limiting me is the fact that I'm smoking all the time. It's the fact that I don't want to have to spend time with you because I'd rather do that. So I was like, I want to be with you. I want to see it for myself. I want that intimate encounter with you. I don't want to live vicariously through someone else. I want to live through you. With you, so you show me. So on Easter, very disrespectful of me, but I smoked on Easter. Honestly, you can tell how far gone I was when I didn't even know the point of Resurrection Day. I didn't even know how sacred that day is, and or the meaning of that day, the point of that day. I didn't even care because I wanted to smoke. So I smoked that whole day, basically. Yeah. And April 13 happens. Somehow I find the verse Philippians 4:13. It's I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. That is the first verse I ever memorized, and that is the verse that I continuously go back to. That verse really helped me. You know, going through these 7 days was definitely very hard because now I used to use weed to get through the day. To whenever I would get upset, I wanted to smoke. Whenever I was sad and crying, I wanted to smoke. Me smoking was me getting out of my reality, me escaping my true feelings, my true self. I didn't like to be alone. I was so codependent because I needed someone or something, and I didn't like to be alone. I didn't like myself. I wasn't confident in myself. I had a very low self-esteem. So I used weed to help me. April 13th, I gave my life to him. I said, God, I give you control. I give you the full, I surrender my life to you. I want to live through your word, live by the example that Jesus set for me. But I can't do it on my own. So I gave my life to him on that day, and I felt great because I felt his love. I felt the Holy Spirit overpowering me and moving in me, changing my likes, changing my dislikes throughout these 7 days. But at the same time, the enemy is definitely trying to tempt me. The enemy is definitely trying to attack me in any way he can. living in a house with 5 other people, and none of them are Christian. None of them understand what I'm doing. None of them understand why I'm doing it. And when I talk about God to them, they would definitely listen to me, but they just couldn't understand. And it was very hard. During this time, like during these 7 days, I said, I'm only going to listen to Christian music. I'm only going to watch Christian videos. So either preachings or people talking about their experiences, different things like that. I'm only going to read things like read the Bible or things about you. At the time, because I was trying to find God and seek him, I only wanted godly advice. I didn't want anyone of the world to give me advice, because at the end of the day, like, they're gonna give you advice based off of their feelings, their flesh, their emotions. And I wanted someone to give me advice based off of the Bible, based off of what God would recommend you to do. You know, you can't just read the Bible all in one day. It's a big book. So I needed someone who knew the Bible and who can give me sound godly advice, sound godly wisdom. So I started to reach out to my mom. I started to text her, call her. It got to the point where I would call her 4 hours of the day, multiple times a day. I was calling her, asking her for advice, like literally anything and everything. I would constantly call her. And I never, but you know, when I was younger, we had a good relationship, but throughout middle school, high school, college, it just deteriorated. So at this point, it was like we were breaking down that wall that we built for years. So I kept calling her. After 4 days or so, literally 4 days, I started seeing like changes within the first day, but within 4 days, I kept getting that urge: you need to break up with your boyfriend. I'm like, no, get that thought out of my mind. Get that thought out of here, bro. Like, get that out of here. I don't want nothing to do with that. But I kept getting that urge. I don't know what I was reading during that time, but I kept feeling like you need to break up with him. And I feel like the main reason was because he was still living of the world and I was trying to live of God. I know after like the second day of doing this, I was like, I don't want to smoke anymore. I eventually deleted all my non-Christian music. By the third day, I had no more non-Christian music on my phone. I would only have Christian music. Like, I was seeing those changes within 2 days, 3 days. So by the 4th day, I'm like, he's just gonna keep distracting you, and it's not his fault. Me and him would hang out, and because I was doing this thing, he thought it was only for a tolerance break. So when we would hang out, he would still be smoking and I just wouldn't. We used to smoke in my car. I didn't care. I would smoke anywhere, and I loved that I had my own car because I could smoke in my car and no one could tell me nothing. So at this point, I said, I don't want you to smoke in my car because I'm not smoking, and I don't want my car to smell like that because it's, you know, I just don't want to be tempted like that. So I would still sit with him though. So we would be outside and he'll smoke or whatever the case is. And I just, like, you know, but he'll also listen to his non-Christian music, which I don't want to listen to. He'll watch things that I don't want to watch. And it was to the point where I'm like, you really saw the enemy trying to fight for me, and God, like, bro, this is my daughter. You better back up now. So I knew that God was trying to separate me from anything that could lead me astray, especially during such like a sensitive time, because of course I'm tender. So I'll be so quick to just run back. You know what I mean? Like, so easy to go back to the world because the enemy makes the world seem so great, and oh, this and that, and just follow your flesh and just follow me. Like, no, bro. So because I was slowly like pulling to God, I felt the enemy trying to tug me back to him. So it was hard. And I felt like that's why I needed to separate from anything worldly. I just started doing things by myself, which I would never, bro, never been able to do that. You know, go to the park alone. Like, I used to, if I was doing anything alone before, it was because I was smoking. So I felt good. I'll jam out because I'm smoking, and I'm happy because I'm smoking. But other than that, I wouldn't need people all the time. I would want people there all the time to help me through the day, to text me, at least be on FaceTime while I'm doing a bunch of stuff. There was a point where me and my boyfriend at the time, we would be on FaceTime for like 10 hours. That is so unhealthy. Like, you should be able to have time alone. Now, like, this point, me being with God, I'm like, I'm learning how to be alone. I would spend hours in my room with him, listening to worship music, reading the Bible, praising him, glorifying his name, watching Christian videos, just trying to spend time with him and learn more about him. I was so hungry because I loved the way that I was being changed, and I just wanted more. So I tried to break up with him twice because he kept telling me, he kept putting an emphasis on me. He's like, bro, you need to break up with him because he's holding you back. Like, yes, I would spend time with God, but I was still limiting my time with God because I wanted to spend so much time with him. Like, bro, prioritize. I couldn't fight my flesh. I couldn't take over my flesh in that sense to be like, no, this is what I'm doing. No, I would just feed into it. So God's like, bro, I can take you somewhere deeper, somewhere where you can't even imagine. A year now, I'm like, bro, I want to cry with how grateful I am that he kept trying, that no matter how many times I looked away, no matter how many times I was that Jonah running away from what he had planned for me, he still pushed forward to me. He still kept taking my attention. He still kept trying with me, giving me signs after signs after signs. Like, even though I'm showing so much unbelief, unfaithfulness to him, he was faithful with me. He showed grace and mercy to me. So I was like, So April 18, I tried. I hung out with him that night. I tried. I couldn't break up with him. Couldn't get the words out. Could not. Bam. Next day, April 19th, again, I tried. But I remember our conversation. I want to say we were talking about our relationship and how he's grateful to have me, and how he was talking to one of his guy friends about me and saying how much he loves this relationship. And he wasn't good with his emotions. He never was a verbal person. He was you'll see my love through things that I do, but I'm very verbal. Yeah, great, do things for me to show your love, but I need you to tell me I love you. I need that verbal connection. So because he didn't have that, when he said that, I was like, dang, bro, he really likes me. So I'm like, God, like, there can't be a negative thing for this. Like, it's a good relationship. And I'm like, he's never said that to me. After, like, we've been talking for 2 months, dating for 1 month. He's never said that to me before. So I was like, wow. But it was also like the enemy kind of trying to, like, throw a wrench into God's plan and kind of, like, deter me from doing what God told me to do. So again, that night, I couldn't do it. I remember we were sitting outside. He was smoking. He had to get something from his house. So he goes into his room, and I'm standing outside, and I call my mom. Like, Mom, I don't know. Because up until this point, I was talking to my mom, and I was asking her for advice. She was telling me, if you know God is telling you to break up with him, break up with him. Plain and simple. She said it a lot nicer. She definitely was, the way that she was talking to me throughout these days of me reaching out to her, she was talking to me where she was listening and she was not judging me. So it didn't push me away from God. It didn't push me away from confiding in her. If anything, it pulled me closer to her and allowed me to know that I can trust her. So because I was venting hard, telling my mom a lot of stuff that I never thought I would tell her. Venting hard. I was telling her everything and anything. So the way that she was like just saying, listen to his voice, trust him. If he is telling you to do something, it's not to harm you. Jeremiah 29, he has a plan and a purpose for you. He has a plan that will have a hope and a future for you. It's not to harm you. So do what he's asking you to do. So I remember when I left his house, I couldn't do it, and I'm crying. I'm driving home. It's a one straight road, and I'm eventually gonna get to my house. So I'm crying because I felt so defeated. I felt like a loser. I'm like, bro, you told me to do it, and I don't have the strength. I don't have the courage. I'm fearful about what's gonna happen. I'm fearing for the unknown. I'm fearing for what's gonna happen, the repercussions, the negativity that this will cause. Me being alone, I don't want to be alone. I was still at that point where I didn't want to be alone. Keep in mind, this is only day 6. And I'm like, I can't. I remember crying, and I'm driving, and I'm like, God, if you want me to do this, I'll do it for you. I remember I said, if I'm overlooking anything, when I wrote it down, I can't make this stuff up, bro. I said, if I'm missing something, if I'm overlooking something about him, if there's something that's in my face, about him, that I should know it's not a good relationship, that I should know that I need to leave. Like, I'll do it for you. Just show me a sign, show me something that I know it is for you. I won't break up with him on my own. I won't break up with him for my good. I will break up with him for you. So if this is something you want me to do, I'll do it for you. I don't have the strength to do it for myself. I don't care if it will be good for me. I don't want to do it for myself. I will do it for you. I remember crying so much because I'm tearing, and I said, God, if I'm overlooking something, show me. I look, because, I can't have my eyes closed driving, so I'm holding onto the wheel, and I look and I turn and I'm like, what the? And I remember it was a Popeyes. He loves getting my attention with signs, literally a physical sign. It was a Popeyes that I was passing. It had an LED light that was like this, and the message keeps like going. So as I said this and I'm crying, I look, it says yes. I look away, I'm driving, and I look back and it says yes. And I'm like crying, like, no. Please don't make me. Even after he gives me the sign, I'm still begging him to not make me do this. Bro, like that's how you know like how hard it was. Sometimes he's gonna make you do hard things, but it's only to build you up. It's only to help you get better. It's only for your benefit. So it's a hard situation. I got myself into this situation, so I need to get myself out with him, with his help. I can't do things on my own. So I'm crying because I'm like, dang, bro, like so upset. I'm like, why? There be times where you can't see what God has planned for you. You can't see the benefit that's coming from it. You can't even see why he wants you to do it. You can't see that far ahead. So me doing this, I'm like crying because I'm like, God, there's no good. What good can come from this? Like thinking that I know better than he does. And John 13 verse 7, he says, you do not know what I'm doing now, but you won't understand what I'm doing now, but you will understand later. There's times where he makes you do things. There's times where you have to just trust him. You have to know that he knows best. You have to believe that have faith in him. Have faith in in what he's capable of. Don't rely on yourself because your heart is deceitful. Trust him. So it was hard because I couldn't see what he was doing. I couldn't see the benefit that would come from this. But because that happened, I said, okay. So I'm driving home. After that, I'm crying, crying home. I'm like, all right, God, if you want me to do this, then please help me do it. Give me the courage because I can't do this on my own. So as I'm driving, I see like a gun store and it says S+G. And I remember just crying because I felt his presence. I felt his love. I felt him hugging me. I felt him holding me where he's like, I will not put you in danger. I will not hurt you. I want you. I want the best for you. So that happened. I eventually get home and I'm texting my mom. I don't remember what I texted her, but I texted her and she eventually sends me, what is that called? She sends me Psalms. So she sends me Psalms, a joy comes in the morning. Because she knew that I was sad that I had to break up with him. Told me, a joy comes in the morning. And like, it didn't help me. It did not help me. I'm going to tell you right now. I remember when I read it, I was like, I'm still crying. Like, I'm still crying. This is not benefiting me. So I said, all right, God, I'm going to open this Bible at random and give me a message, give me a sign, tell me something so I know that this is what you want me to do. Acting like all these other signs before this, it wasn't enough. I'm still asking for confirmation. I'm like, bro, you have so much patience. I thank you, Lord. Now this is past midnight. It's now officially April 20th, 2020. 420, the day of weed. You would think that this is the day that I'm actually spending so much time smoking. But instead, I'm over here diving head deep for God. So I wrote this down because I'm going to read it to you. Basically, I opened the Bible at random. So this is what I wrote on that day. I love journaling. I also like journaling because it really helps me like keep track of what I was going through that time, and it just helps me glorify God later on, because when I go through it, I'm like, wow, you saved me from this, you helped me through that, wow, this is how I was feeling through this day, and you delivered me from that. It really helps me just remember where God took me out of and where I used to be, and why I'm grateful I'm not there anymore. So I definitely like it. But yeah, so I wrote this on that day. I wrote, I'm confused on if I should break up with him. Why are you confused? Bro, he told you mad times. Why are you still confused? As if he didn't even tell you. Like, what's wrong with you? Girl, I said, I do not want to, but this feeling won't shake me. There's times when God tells you to do something, and let's say you don't know for sure if you should do it. If you feel an emphasis, if you feel like you can't let go of that thought, you can't ignore it, you keep thinking about it, that keeps coming back up, it keeps being repetitive, bro, that's something he wants you to do. Like, one sign of how to really know if God's trying to tell you what's something to do, or if you feel like it's from God, if it keeps picking at you, you can't let go of it, you can't drop it, it most likely is him telling you. So I wrote, it won't shake me. I feel like I have to do something I just don't want to do. I went to his house to try to do it, and our conversation made me not do it. I just couldn't. I felt bad, and it hurt me so much. Tonight, I still can't shake the feeling. I opened my Bible, aiming for Matthew. I definitely did not know much about the Bible, so I didn't really know where the books of the Bible was. But I was aiming for Matthew. Why? I don't even know why I was aiming for Matthew. But instead, I opened it to the book of Psalms. My mom just sent me a few verses from Psalms 30 called A Joy in the Morning. The Psalms that I opened was chapter 95. It is called A Call to Worship and Obedience. I remember just reading that title, I started crying because I knew he was telling me I need to be obedient. The way that you worship him, the way you lift up his name is by being obedient. And I'm like, dang, bro, I don't want to be disobedient to you. I do not want to be disobedient. So I remember that alone told me I had to do it. But I still read that chapter, just to see if there was anything more that it said. So I said, 2 days ago, I was reading Numbers, and it was talking about wilderness. Keep in mind, Numbers is when Moses helps. Numbers is the time where Moses is in the wilderness with the Israelites. He just got the Israelites out from slavery, so now they're traveling to the promised land that God has promised for them. So they're in the wilderness. For me, I felt like I was in my wilderness because I was so lost, where I'm trying to find him, but like everything is blurry, everything is getting mixed up, and I just want to know I'm still following him, and I'm still doing things for him and not for myself. So it said it was talking about the wilderness. This was interesting to me because my mom and I were talking about how number 10 means journey and wilderness. And I felt like this was my journey to God, or my journey with God. This psalm said, verse 8, today if you will hear his voice, if you will hear his voice, not hear his voice, like if you will. So even though he's speaking, you can choose. You have free will. You can choose right or left. I always do that. Left or yes, but regardless, you can choose. You have free will, so you can either, when he speaks to you, you can either choose to go, or you can choose to go the opposite direction. And this was me being Jonah. This was me going the opposite direction, me not listening to what he told me to do. I tried twice and I kept going the opposite way. So he said, if you will hear my voice, do not harden your hearts as in the rebellion, and as in the day of the trial in the wilderness. So he's talking about the time where Moses was in the wilderness. How funny is God? How funny are you? I just read Numbers, which talks about Moses being in the wilderness, that whole process. How funny is it that the time that I need him to speak to me is a time where he has me open to Psalms, and it's connecting to that. Just him showing me he's always there, bro. Like he was there with me 2 days ago, and he's still here with me today. So he says, don't harden your hearts. Don't be stubborn. Don't rebel against me. Because in the wilderness, it was supposed to be like, I want to say a couple days trip. It turned into 40 years because they kept rebelling. They kept complaining. They kept hardening their hearts and being stubborn. Like, he told me, don't harden your heart. Don't look away from me. Don't look away from the plan that I have from you. Don't look away from the promised land that I have prepared for you. He says, when your fathers tested me, so he's talking about the people he's talking about the Israelites during that time. He says, when your fathers tested me, they proved me, though they saw my work. So they saw his miracles. In that time, during at Moses' time, God was doing crazy miracles that I'm like, bro, if I saw that, I would be all in. That's what you say now, but for me, he's doing all these crazy things. He's moving in my life at this time, and I'm still hardening my heart. I'm still rebelling against him. Hypocrite, Skylah. It says, verse 10, for 40 years I was grieved with that generation and said, it is a people who go astray in their hearts, and they do not know my ways. So I swore in my wrath, they shall not enter my rest. He's saying, if you don't stop rebelling, if you listen to me, then you can enter my rest and you'll feel at peace. You'll feel at home. You'll feel that love from me. But if you rebel, if you keep following your flesh, following the world, then you can't enter my rest. And at the bottom of the page, I said, this was my test, choosing God or the world. I remember crying a lot. That next morning, I fell asleep. I woke up that next morning, and yes, a joy did come in the morning. And I remember I texted my boyfriend. I said, I'm coming over in like 10 minutes. Be ready. It was early in the morning. He's not a morning person, but he said, okay. We didn't plan to hang out, but I said, I'm coming. So we went. We went to get food because he was hungry. And then as soon as we parked in front of his house, I immediately start the conversation. I said a quick thing in my head. I said, God, give me the strength, give me the words. And then I said, I have to break up with you. I break up with him. I do all the talking. I start crying because this is so hard for me. So hard for me. I know he was caught blindsided. He was caught off guard. He was not expecting that. I wasn't expecting that. It was definitely not like we were having any type of problems. You know, we weren't even arguing. We weren't like that. But it had to be done. He didn't say not one word. He walked out of the car and he left. He did not say one word. And I don't blame him. And I remember driving home crying. I felt a weight lifted. I felt like finally I did what God called me to do. And I was grateful because I'm like, God, I trust you. I trust you. Even though right now I cannot see what you're doing. I don't even know why you would make me do that. But I trust you and I trust your plan. So I left. I go home. I cried for days. I remember that day specifically. I just had my JBL speaker loud as you can possibly imagine, you know, screaming worship music, and I'm laying on my floor, literally laying on my floor, curled up in a ball. So that happened. I remember, even though I broke up with him, I did still keep him there. So I thought, as long as I break up with him, like, that's it. You know, I did what you called me to do. You told me to break up with him. That's it. So I broke up with him, but I still would talk to him here and there. Before, we were hanging out every single day. So at this point, we were hanging out a few times. And he didn't tell anybody that we broke up. So in their eyes, we were still dating. So they kind of just probably thought things were normal. But for us, we were not dating. We were not doing the things that we used to do when we were dating. It was more like friends, but it was because I still had my feelings and he obviously still had his feelings, so we didn't want to let go. So that happened. That lasted for about a month ish, not a month, maybe like 2 or 3 weeks. So I felt the urge that I had to fast. I don't know what it was that really put that pressure in me that I had to fast, but before that I used to fast with my mom, but I wasn't fasting the way that you should. The point of fasting is to spend that time with him, spend that intimate time with him, focusing on him. Like me fasting with my mom, she was doing what she had to do, but I was just fasting. Me fasting was just starving myself. Like I wasn't reading the Bible, I wasn't praising him, I wasn't worshiping him. I was just not eating and I thought it was fasting. But this time I said I want to do a real fast for myself, to strengthen my relationship with him, to get more clarity, more guidance, more strength from him, because I don't know what to do. So I decided that May 4th, I was going to start fasting. My birthday is May 15th. So I said, okay, I'm going to fast for 11 days. During that time, I was still calling my mom and relying on her, so asking her for advice. So she had told me, she's like, when God tells you to do something, you need to cut it at the root. You can't cut off the leaves and expect that tree to just die. She's like, you have to cut it at the root. She said, all you did was trim the top, but you still have that root with him. You still are rooted in him. You still have that relationship, that connection. The only thing you got rid of was the title, but you were still talking, you're still hanging out, you're still, distracting yourself with him. So when she said that, I was like, dang. So 7 days later, in 1 week, he got Alex out. But I blocked him, I deleted him, I changed my number, and I didn't give it to a lot of people. During this fast, I remember I felt the urge that I had to forgive and ask for forgiveness from a lot of people. I was so mean before when I was with God. I was so angry that I would take it out on other people. I was so depressed that I would take out my hurting on others to make myself feel better in a way. I was so nasty a lot of the times, and I pushed a lot of people away. I had a lot of friends, and as time progressed, none of them would even want to be there. A lot of them left, and a lot of them I basically pushed out because I was always so selfish. So during this fast, I literally had written a long list of people that I needed to apologize to, and then I needed to ask for their forgiveness, but I also wanted to tell them that I forgive them. There's times where you can just, God, I forgive this so-and-so for doing this to me, and you'll be good. But for me, I had so much hurting in me. I had so much pain that I was holding on to. I was to the point where I had a big filing cabinet and everybody's name was in there, and I had files on everybody, that I continued to hold on to grudges of this one hurt me for this way, this one did that to me, this one did that, and I just had my files. And if someone was, I just wanted to take it out on them, and I would hold that against them. And if they would try to be nice to me, I'm like, oh, but you did this and that. Ew, that was that was who I was. That's how I was. So I knew that God wanted me to address these people, because this was getting myself out of my comfort zone, and I wasn't doing it for myself. I was doing it for him, because he says, how do you expect me to forgive you when you won't forgive others? In one of the multiple gospels, he talks about how you need to be very forgiving. The disciples asked Jesus, well, how many times should we forgive them? 7 times? And then Jesus is like, 70 times 7. That's how many times you should forgive them. You should never not give someone forgiveness. You should always give someone forgiveness, because you know what? God, Jesus always forgives you for your sins. I could redo the same sin, and I'm trying to not do it, but I do it, and he will forgive you. He will always forgive you. He through Jesus, we have that opportunity to be forgiven. So how dare you not forgive someone else? At the end of the day, unforgiveness only hurts you. It doesn't hurt that person. It doesn't hurt them. All of these people who I was so upset with, subconsciously and consciously, half of them didn't even know that I was still upset about that. Half of them didn't even know that I was still bothered by what you did at 2013. They didn't even care. They forgot they even did that. So it was, at the end, it was just hurting me. It was deteriorating me. It was making me more unhappy with my life, unhappy with my days, just annoyed at everything. So it was hurting me more than it was ever hurting them. They were been gone. They've been moved on. They got more friends. They got other people to be there for them. They didn't care that I was still hurt. So me doing this, I started to write letters to my brothers, to my dad, to friends that I was really close to before, and I wasn't anymore. And as I started, taking names off this list, I started having more names. I knew God kept putting emphasis. He was saying this one and then that one. He knows you so well. He has been there. Like, I always felt so alone, and he was there every time. He was there with me. The pain that I felt, that I was living with, he felt that pain, and he feels yours. He was there with me every time through all of it. He never left my side, even when I left his, even when I turned away from him, even when I cursed his name, pushed him away. Like, he was still there with me. So he knew what was still hurting me. He knew deep down what was still in my heart that I wouldn't let go of, that I just wanted to hold on to it. I can't even imagine how many people I had to apologize to. My goal was to write down these letters, because like I said, I like journaling. I liked writing. I don't love reading too much, but I like writing. I love talking. So I enjoyed, in high school or in college, I loved papers because I am good at that stuff. So I would write these letters, and my goal was to read it to the person, tell them. But, as time progressed, I didn't want to give everyone my phone number. And also, everybody's busy. So for some people, I was able to read it to them in person. Other people, I read it to them over FaceTime. And then others, I just sent them a huge, long message. And I was just honest with them. I remember one specific person, our relationship ended because of something, our friendship ended based off of something I did. And before this, I did apologize to her. But she knew it wasn't sincere, and I genuinely was sorry, but I wasn't good with showing that I was genuinely sorry, and I wasn't sorry enough that it showed. So she didn't care for that stupid apology. She didn't care for that meaningless words that I was telling her. It wasn't genuine. She didn't feel it. But that was in person. When I sent her this message, keep in mind, over 90% of our communication is nonverbal. So when you have a message over text, you're getting 10% or less of what they're really saying. You don't get to see the tone, their body language, their facial expressions. You miss so much of that message because it's through text. Somehow, glory be to God, somehow that message that I sent her touched her way more than it touched her when I was in person with her. And I apologize, a year before that, or a month or months before that, she felt the change in me through that text message. She actually was so nice and so forgiving, and all of these people, I had to apologize because it was to the point where I didn't want to apologize to people. I had pride that I was like, oh God, I forgive them. And I apologize. I don't want them to know that. I do it with you. I could do it with you. That was my thing. There were certain people that I was like, God, I forgive them. I don't want to talk to them. And he was like, no. He started to give me visions and memories where I was reliving things that I did to these people, ways that, the way that I would act with these people. He would give me specific encounters that I had. I remember I would be awake, but I would be doing something, and then I would just get that reminder. I would get that vision or that replay of what happened during this time of my life and this and that with that specific person. And I would be I would feel so bad. I would feel so sorry that I ever treated someone like that. And I'm like, wow, and that would be the way that he would push me and help me, give me the courage to reach out to them. Because at the end of the day, me going to these people, that's humbling myself. And I've never been at that point where I was able to do that. I would always be so prideful. I didn't want no one to see me cry. I didn't want no one to know that I was hurting. I didn't want no one to know that what they just did pissed me off and hurt me. So I would just hold it in and cry on my free time, and I would just try to keep it to myself because I didn't want you to know that you bothered me, that you pushed that right button. I didn't want nobody to know that I had so much pride. So I didn't like that I had to bring myself so low, be honest and tell people that they hurt me like this and that these things really affected me. So it was really it was him changing me throughout all of this time, changing my likes, my dislikes, my preferences, what I want to do. Now I am disgusted. I'm repulsed by the scent of weed. Before, I used to fiend. You have no idea. If I smelled weed, I could smell it from miles away, and I'm running to it. I'm like, all I want is the scent. Like, I love this so much. And now I'm like, when I smell it, I'm like, oh, closing my window. Like, oh, I don't want to smell it. Oh, like, it's so... And I think it also, you know, it brings me back to that time where I'm not happy of that time, but I definitely feel like God would want, you know, God wants me to share this because, yes, even though I'm not proud of it, I know that it will help somebody else. And, you know, it's to lift up his name, because now look at me sitting in a park alone for like 2 hours or more at that. But, you know, and I'm having a great time. And it's because I'm with him. I just want to dwell in his presence. I just want to live with him at all times. That's the end. I have other experiences that I'll share in the future. He's going to guide me on what else he wants me to do. But I hope that this blesses someone. I hope that this really talks to someone. God, I pray that you move in these people. I pray that you encounter them. You allow them to have their own intimate encounter, their own intimate experience with you. I pray that you move in their lives, Lord, that any hurting or any pain that they're going through, that you show them the way, that you guide their steps, that you establish their steps where they don't lean to the left or to the right, but that they are constantly in the narrow path following you, and that they're uplifted in and strengthened in your name and in Jesus Christ. Amen. Yes, if anybody wants any free Bibles, you can DM me on my Instagram. It's Skylah, 3 H's _ I am willing to ship it to you, so it's literally no charge. I just want anybody and everyone to at least get the opportunity to have a Bible and to let God speak to them through it. So I hope that this helps anyone. I'll see you guys soon. Hopefully the wind is not bad. Lord, let it be your will, because we're trying to get this out. So yeah, so something, I don't know, something like that. You know, me trying to get attention. Girl. So I feel like oh, this is so irrelevant. We're just gonna ignore that completely. We're gonna just cut that all out because that's irrelevant. We finally was relieved, or what is that called? That's, you know, that word, delivered. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. He was delivered. I kept postponing it. Now that I am, Lord, why is this so hard? Why is this so hard? Why is it? I don't understand.